It's 10 days till Christmas. Y'all ready? No. If you said yes, we all don't like you. If you're watching online, hi, Mom. I hope you're watching. They usually tell me, they're like, hey, we had you on the big screen today. It makes me feel important. So, hi. Well, hey, before we jump in, I wanted to give you a little update. So at the end of the year, we take something called a Witness 1:8 year-end offering. Witness 1:8 comes from that verse in Acts where Jesus tells us to be his witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. And we kind of take that and say, hey, he's got 3 levels of impact that he wants us to make. So for us, Jerusalem is Wadsworth. This is where we're called to make an impact. And then Judea and Samaria is kind of a regional thing. And this year we picked for our regional thing, Greenville, South Carolina. I know a pastor down there named Corbin doing a great work, One Community Church in South Carolina. He's in a food desert. He's feeding people. He's preaching the gospel. His church plant just reached 100 people. He's just killing it down there. He's got 5 kids. So that's a lot. So one of the things we're trying to do is send money to that church to get him on full time because he cannot be a dad, be a pastor, and have another job. So we're trying to give him the gift to say, hey, focus on the pastor and the dad thing and let's see what God can do there. So that's our goal there. And then for the ends of the earth, you probably have heard we're partnering with a church down in Brazil called Mosaic, which is just crazy. Pastor Samuel there is doing an awesome thing in Sao Paulo, one of the biggest cities in the world. And what we're doing there is we're trying to send them money so that they don't have to worry about their rent because they're in a mobile place. They're trying to be in the heart of the city. So we take care of that for them, so free them up to do ministry. So our goal for the year-end offering was $50,000. I wanted to give you an update where we're at. We're at about $23,000 right now, which is pretty good. Okay, you're the first. Oh, you're going to clap. Okay, I was just going to say, you're the first service that didn't clap. I don't know how to feel. So we're about halfway there, which is pretty good. So if you're like me, Chris sent me a list of people who had given last year but hadn't given this year, and I was on the list. He put me at the top. So I'm still praying about it. Me and Lisa are still working through what we're going to give, but I just want to encourage you, be praying about that. We really do feel called to make an impact on all 3 of these levels. You can see a tangible difference it's going to make in these ministries and in the lives of the people there. So I'll be praying about that, be thinking about that a couple weeks till the end of the year. All right. So if you were here last week, you know we started a little mini series because I had 2 weeks open before Christmas. And you don't go to a church where we're going to talk about Christmas all month because that's not what I do. So I barely talk about Christmas on Christmas. You're welcome. So we're in a little mini series here, and I'm really excited about what I think God has for me to share. So have you ever noticed how some words are just ugly? Like the word itself is just kind of an ugly word. And sometimes it's because of the way it sounds and looks, and other times it's because of what it means. So I want to give you a list of words that I think are ugly. Here's the first one. The word fetid. You ever heard of this word? Fetid means like horrible smell. But this word for me carries the idea of like death and decay and rotting. Like it's just for me, that's an ugly, ugly word. All right, this next one, for some of you, you'll really find this ugly. It really affects some of you. A different kind of ugly than this one though, this word, cubicle. Ugh. Monday, right? Like it's just the box that I work in, cubicle. It's an ugly, ugly word. All right, this next one is very specific to a certain part of the crowd. Some of you really, really hate this word. I'm not one of them, but you just think this is the ugliest word. I'm sorry. Just leave it up there. Let's let them be uncomfortable for a minute. I just think of chocolate cake. I don't know what's wrong with you. That's a good word to just brownies, chocolate cake. That's what that word's supposed to be for. All right, so this next one, it's one of those words that kind of sounds like what it means, and it's just all ugly. So it's this one, regurgitate. Isn't that? And when you say it, it just kind of feels like you're doing it, regurgitate. And it's even grosser because that's like everybody's doing right now. It's like the year of regurgitate. Now, some words sound ugly, but they actually don't have an ugly meaning. And I thought that was fascinating. I actually learned one this week. This is a new word for me, this one, crepuscular. Now, when you first read it, doesn't that kind of sound great? Doesn't it seem like a science textbook that you had in high school that you showed your friend, like, look at this, and it's like a gross picture of something, like, oh, crepuscular. But it actually doesn't mean that. This word means active at twilight. That's all it means. So like, if you're a night owl, you have crepuscular habits. It's actually kind of cool, right? There you go. You learned. You get that. That's for free. You're good today. New word. All right, this next word, second ugliest word on the list. I feel like I need to pre-apologize for like spoiling the room with this, but it's this word. Isn't that disgusting? Disgusting. I was just looking to see if anybody has a shirt with that word on it right now. We know who to pray for. We beat you once. That's all we needed. It was our Super Bowl. All right, and here is, in my opinion, one of the ugliest words in the entire English language. It's this one. Ungrateful. That's an ugly word, isn't it? You don't want, in your life, you don't want any part of that word. You don't, right? You don't want to be around people like that, right? You kind of push away from people like that. You don't want your kids to be that, right? And you certainly don't want to be that. Ungrateful. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been accused? And it's an accusation. Have you ever been accused of being ungrateful before? Like somebody said, you're just not very grateful. I don't know about you, I can speak for myself. When somebody accuses me of being ungrateful, man, that like triggers my defensiveness immediately. Like I get a little bit mad, a little bit irritated. That's like a super personal thing to attack with. And what happens in my mind, if somebody says I'm ungrateful, like immediately I want to start arguing. And I start doing this thing in my mind where I rehearse all of the grateful thoughts I've ever had and all the grateful feelings that I've ever had. And as we're arguing, I'm more sure that they were wrong than when we started. Like I get more certain of how grateful I am on the inside. And they're wrong and I'm right, for sure. Those kind of accusations never go well. Those conversations when somebody accuses someone else of being ungrateful, those conversations almost never end well. I don't know if you've ever been in a conversation like that ended well. I'd love to hear about it because they almost never do. But I want to propose something I think that's kind of scary. It's terrifying, terrifying. What if you could be ungrateful and not know it? What if you could be ungrateful and not know it? Isn't that a kind of a horrifying thought? Like if everyone else was in on the secret that you were ungrateful and you didn't know. Everyone else could see that you were ungrateful and you didn't have any idea. You looked in the mirror, you didn't see it, but everybody else sees it. What if you could lack gratitude and be unaware? That would be scary, right? Well, here's the thing. I want to say, I think it's possible. I think it's possible. Because there's something about gratitude that we don't realize. Something about gratitude that we can't see. We need a little bit of a paradigm shift in our thinking when it comes to gratitude, and that'll unlock something for us. So we're going to find it in a story about Jesus. So if you don't want to be the person who's ungrateful and doesn't know it, this story is really important. It's in Luke chapter 17, starting in verse 11. As Jesus continued on toward Jerusalem, he reached the border between Galilee and Samaria. As he entered the village there, 10 men with leprosy stood at a distance, crying out, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." All right, so if you're not familiar with the time period that Jesus lived in, one of the worst things that could happen to you is you could get leprosy. Now, it was a skin disease, and it was awful. Physically speaking, horrible thing to get. They didn't really have a cure for it. And it was not just like, oh, I have a rash. It was like it would eat away at your flesh, and it was awful, physically just awful to get. But I want to argue, as bad as it was physically, I actually think in a lot of ways it was worse socially, because back then, since they didn't have a cure, they believed it was really contagious. If you got leprosy, they would kick you out of your community. You would not be allowed to live with your family anymore. You would not be allowed to have your job anymore. You wouldn't be allowed to worship at the temple anymore. They would put you out into your own little isolated community with other lepers, and you were completely separated from your life. You lost your entire life. And you had to stay like a certain distance away from other people. Like if you were traveling, you had to announce that you had leprosy so that people could get away from you. So there's a certain distance. So you notice here in this beginning of the story, it says that they stood at a distance and they yelled to Jesus because they couldn't get near him. Their disease kept them at a distance from Jesus. Now, it's still cool, though, that somehow these group of 10 lepers heard about Jesus, that he was coming, somehow knew that it was him, even though they were at a distance, and they knew enough about him to know that he could do something about their problem. They knew that he could make a difference in what they were dealing with. So they start yelling, and for some reason, every time I read a story in the Bible where people are yelling at Jesus from a distance to help them, it like moves me because they see it's like this desperation. Like, I've tried everything else, and nothing's else working. Jesus, I need you. I need you. Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. So the scene is, you have to picture this. Jesus is walking into the town, and they are at a distance yelling at him. 10 guys in unison, have mercy on us. So Jesus stops, and the beginning of verse 14, here's what Jesus says. He looked at them and said, go show yourselves to the priests. Now, if you've never read a story like this before, it's like weird. So why would Jesus say that? Well, in the Old Testament, there's like a process built out for if you got a skin disease. So in the Old Testament, if you got a skin disease, you also got kicked out of your community. And if you believed while you were out away from everybody else that you were healed, if you thought, oh, it's gone now, there was a process for how to get back into community. You had to go through certain steps. And the first thing that you would do is go show yourself to a priest. And the priest would be the one who would say, all right, I think you are healed. And then you would start the process of coming back into community. So what Jesus just told them is take the first step that you would take if you were healed. But actually, literally what he told them is walk down a path, a literal path towards a literal priest. Walk down a path where you don't know what's going to happen when you get to the end of it. That's what he just told them. Because he told them to go see the priests. They're not healed yet. They're not healed yet. So to tell them to take the first step as if they were healed, even though they're not healed, this is actually kind of a scary thing. To walk down this path, to walk towards the priests and say, hey, look at me. That's terrifying. Because if they get to the priest and they still have leprosy, the priest is going to be like, dude, what are you showing me here? You showing me your leprosy? And that could actually end very poorly for them. So this call to walk down a path, not knowing what's at the end of it. You actually see this kind of thing all throughout the Bible, where Jesus will call somebody to do something. God will call somebody to do something where it's more of a path than it is a destination. They're actually called to a direction, not a destination. And they don't know what's at the end of it. They have to take a risk to listen to God's pull in their life with no guarantee of the outcome. And I thought about that. Like, what if this is like one of the main ways God works? But it seems like, I'm not saying he always works this way, but it seems like one of God's like MOs is to tell some people, here's a direction, walk in this direction, and we don't get to like know an outcome. We don't even get to have an idea of the miraculous that he's going to do until we say yes to him. Like there's an order to it. If you want to experience the miraculous in your life, if you want to experience God moving in a spectacular way in your life, you have to move first. Like a yes to Jesus seems to be something that kind of activates God moving. So I just wanted to ask, like, what do you think, how do you think the story, we don't know, how do you think the story would have went if the lepers would have been like, because Jesus said, go show yourselves to the priest, and if they would have been like, we're not healed yet. Heal us first and then we'll go. How do you think Jesus would have responded? We don't know. But my instinct is that wouldn't have went over well. There's something about that step of faith, that we will do what you're telling us to do because we believe you're going to do something with it. We believe you're going to work on us along the way. There's something to that. There's some kind of activation in the spiritual to an act of obedience like that. So I want to ask you, is there anything in your life that you're hesitating and going in a direction because you're kind of waiting on God to give you a guarantee of an outcome? Are you waiting on God to give you some kind of an answer before you take a step? What if that's backwards? What if you're waiting for the thing that's actually supposed to be second and you have to actually take the first step? That you need to say yes to God in something in order for him to start moving. And again, I'm not saying this is always the way he works. He works all different kinds of ways. But what if that's what's going on? You're waiting on God and God's actually waiting on you. What step have you not taken? Sometimes following God involves risk. You might have to take one. So they do. They do. And I want to say, listen, all 10 guys get full props when Jesus said, go show yourselves to the priest. All of them go, okay. And they do. They take a journey, not knowing the destination. All of them start walking. All of them do. And that's really cool. How awesome is that? That's a scary thing. They do it. They start walking towards the priest. And then here's the rest of the rest of verse 14. As they went, they were cleansed of their leprosy. As they went, as they obeyed, as they said yes to Jesus, they were cleansed. Not before, no guarantee, as they went. Now, I just want to point something out about this little part in the story here. This right here, this little partial, this is part of a sentence, right? As they went, they were cleansed. This is the miracle. Do you realize, this is a big part of the reason this story is even in the Bible at all? This right here. And this is a crazy miracle. This is nuts. This is not one guy getting healed. This is 10 guys getting healed. And they're not just healed, they're healed of an incurable disease. And it's not just that they're physically healed of the incurable disease, it's that all 10 guys got their lives back. That all of their families and their friends and everybody they knew, all of their lives are about to be affected because they're now going to be allowed to re-enter that community. So this is a massive miracle. It's going to affect hundreds of people. Huge, just huge. And Luke, sitting down one day, writes, as they went, they were cleansed. What? I don't know about you. When I read it, I'm like, can you give me more on that, Luke? I would write, the whole story would be about that, right? Or if you're only going to write one sentence, could you put an exclamation point at the end of the sentence, right? Or put it in all caps or add an emoji in there. I don't know, Luke, what are you doing? For me, this is like a movie scene. He glosses over it in half a sentence, but I want to zoom in on this. I want to be there as think about it. As they're walking, maybe some of them are limping, some of them are every step hurts, everything's, and all of a sudden they're like, man, I feel really good. And then they look down and they have that moment. Wouldn't you want to see that moment? I want to zoom in and see how they celebrate together and see how they go nuts. But Luke's as they went, they were healed. Okay, Luke. But here's the thing, I thought about it. I was like, why does this bothers me? He buried the lead here. He put it right in the middle of the story. And for me, this is the story. But two things. One, I think what this shows you, as Luke is investigating Jesus' life, Jesus healing 10 guys of an incurable disease and giving their life back and affecting hundreds of people, Luke's that was a Tuesday. Jesus did this stuff all the time. He's so not impressed because Jesus did so many miraculous things. So I think that how understated this is actually a big statement about how much Jesus would do with his life. Jesus was just doing this stuff all the time. Luke's 10 lepers actually doesn't even make the top 10 of miracles. It's cool, but so, and then also the second reason that this makes sense is because I think Luke's yes, this is an amazing miracle, but that's not actually the point of the story. It's not the miracle, it's what happens after the miracle that he's trying to get us to see. So he spends more time on what happens after the miracle than on the miracle because that's the thing he wants us to zoom in on here. So here's what happens. Verse 15, one of them, when he saw that he was healed, came back to Jesus shouting, praise God. One of them. Not all of them, not 9, not 5, one. So imagine the scene. They're walking along. They all look down. Wait a minute, guys. I'm healed. And then, me too. And they start, there had to have been a moment where they all just freaked out. And I also imagine, this is part of the story that Luke didn't tell us, I imagine the disciples are back wherever town, and Jesus was secretly counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then you hear a noise off in the distance because they all just go nuts. You hear this ruckus, and Jesus just standing there smiling yeah, that was me. And they're all going crazy. They're all excited. They're high-fiving. They're this is it. Our lives are back and everything. And the 9 probably pick up the pace to go towards the priest, and one guy just instinctively turns around and goes back to Jesus. I don't think he said anything to him. I think it's just this is what I got to do. It's an instinct. He turns around and he goes back. And this next verse, man, it's so moving. This next verse, verse 16. He fell to the ground at Jesus' feet, thanking him for what he had done. This man was a Samaritan. Don't miss how awesome that is. Because listen, in the beginning of the story, you got to notice the details. The beginning of the story, the interaction with Jesus was from a distance, right? Master, have mercy on us from a distance. And here, he's running back to Jesus, and at some point, he hits that invisible barrier where he's supposed to stay away, and he blasts through it, and he keeps coming, and he comes all the way to Jesus. This is the closest he's gotten to any human being who doesn't have leprosy in a really long time, and he falls at his feet. And he's so grateful for what Jesus has done. That what was wrong with him kept him separated from Jesus, and now Jesus healed him. He's able to come close. And by the way, what a perfect picture of what we've experienced. If you're a Christian, that's what we experience spiritually. There's a separation from God in our sin, and Jesus, what he did on the cross closes that gap, and now we're able to come close. It's a life-changing, existence-changing thing. So this guy has this moment, and he drops. And again, I just wish I was a disciple. I wish I could have seen that. Aren't those moments the best? We just get to see somebody who's just so blown away by what God has done for them. He just falls into a puddle at Jesus' feet. And the disciples just had to stand there like, we'd be blubbering idiot, right? You'd just be crying and smiling, and it'd just be an amazing, amazing thing to see that. So it's a moment. But then Jesus has a question for him. In verse 17. Jesus asked, didn't I heal 10 men? Where are the other 9? Just so you know, Jesus keeps track of his miracles. He doesn't just throw miracles around willy-nilly. He's like, wait a minute, I healed 10. You're just 1. And I want to point some out. Like, Jesus is saying that's not right? Like, this is what Jesus is noticing, that there's not 10 guys kneeling before him. There's 1 guy, and Jesus says, this isn't right. This is off. This isn't the picture. The picture should have been different, and this doesn't make any sense. And then Jesus says in verse 18, has no one returned to give glory to God except this foreigner? And Jesus said to the man, stand up and go. Your faith has healed you. Now, don't let the foreigner thing throw you off. One of the previous verses point out this guy was a Samaritan, so evidently the other 9 were Jewish. So all that means is that the Samaritan didn't quite have as good of a religious education as the other 9, so he actually should have known less than the other 9, but he did more with the less that he knew than they had with the more that they knew. So Jesus is just pointing out the disparity, like, hey, they had all the religious training, but they're still not acting right. And sometimes that happens, right? You ever know a Christian who knows a lot, but they still don't act right? That's what Jesus is pointing out here, that this is what's happening. So Jesus appreciated that this man came back. It meant something to him. So just picture look at this whole scene. 10 lepers yelling at Jesus from a distance, have mercy on us. Jesus says, go show yourselves to priests. They all take an amazing step of faith, and I don't want to not give them credit for that. That was an amazing thing that they all walk that path. They get healed along the way. 1 guy comes back, 9 guys don't. Let me ask you, who do you associate with in the story? Who do you see yourself as? The 1, right? Come on, don't lie. I'm not one of them. Actually, I don't like them, right? I can get emotional about it, thinking about them 9. Like, what are they doing, right? Again, imagine being in let's for a moment, let's imagine that we're a part of this story. Me and you, we're going to be the 13th and 14th disciples for this story. We'll jump in. And we get to see this guy come back, and he's crying, and you're just having this moment, like, what an amazing, Jesus healed him. Look at him. He's like, look, I have a finger now, and it fell off earlier, and here it is. Like, they're just having this moment. It's an amazing moment. And just soaking in the glory of God in that moment. And then Jesus asked that question, where are the other 9? Now, me and you would be like, where are the other 9? And let's just say that me and you decided, you know what? Let's do something about this. Jesus, we'll be right back. And let's me and you go chase them down. We go chase down these lepers. They weren't very fast at first. We'll catch them. And you're fast too, so we'll get there. And let's say we yell at them like, hey, former lepers. And they look around like, there's not very many. Come here. Yeah, it's you. That's who I'm talking to. And let's say we get like, hey, what's up? They'd be like, look at this. No, what's up? And they notice we're frustrated. Guys, and let's make the accusation. Why are you so ungrateful. Let's say we throw the accusation at them. What do you think they're going to say? Do you think they would be like, yeah, wasn't that big of a deal. Don't really care. I don't. Do you think they would do that? I don't. I think that they would fight us. I think you'd get a visceral reaction out of them. If you accuse those 9 of not being grateful, I bet you anything that they would go around the circle. That one of them would be like, man, I get to go home and hold my baby girl. I haven't seen her. Don't tell me I'm not grateful. Another one would be like, I get to hug my wife. I haven't seen my wife in years. I get to hug my wife. Don't tell me I'm not grateful. Another one would say, I get to go back to work and support my family. They've been barely scraping by. I get to help them now. Another one would say, I get to go back to the temple and worship God. I haven't been near the temple in years. They would give you all the reasons why they are incredibly, incredibly grateful. And they would fight us on that. Emotionally, I think they would push back on that. So here's what's going on with these 9. I believe they felt it, but they didn't express it. They felt gratitude, but they didn't express gratitude. They felt something on the inside, but they didn't express it on the outside. So here's the principle, and this is so important. This is the little bit of a paradigm shift you have to have around gratitude. Unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. Unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. If you don't express gratitude, you are communicating to people the exact opposite of what you're feeling. The exact opposite. And this is the worst. This is the worst. So here's what might be going on with you. You have gratitude in your heart for the people in your life. You do. You do. You're not an ungrateful jerk. You're not one of those people. You're grateful for your husband. He might be whatever sometimes, but you like him, right? He works hard. He loves you. He supports you. You're grateful for him. And you're grateful for your wife. You are. She carries the mental load of the family. She's bought all the Christmas presents. You don't even know what they are. You get to smile like an idiot on Sunday or on Christmas morning, right? That's awesome. It's a surprise for the kids. It's a surprise for you. It's great. You're laughing a little too hard there. You're grateful for your family. You're grateful for your friends. You're grateful for the people in your life. You are. You have that in here. But what if you failed to express it? What if you failed to express it, and because you failed to express it, you're communicating the opposite of what you feel. So they think you're not grateful for them. And you think, I feel it, but they don't know because you haven't expressed it. And they might be kind of asking the same question around Jesus, like, weren't there 10? Where's the gratitude? And you're like, I have it, but you haven't expressed it. And this is why it's so insidious, it's so dangerous. Because the gratitude that you feel on the inside, that's real, right? That's not fake. You really do have it on the inside. But because you have it on the inside, it kind of causes, and I'll speak for myself, it kind of causes me to sometimes like let down my guard a little bit. No one can accuse me of not being grateful. I know myself. I am. I have all the feelings right here, all the thoughts right here. What are you talking about? So it causes me to not think I have to express it very much because you could never call me ungrateful because I have gratitude. It tricks you into thinking that you're something that you're not. But here's the thing, and this is what you need to realize. When someone accuses you of not being grateful, whether they mean it or they don't mean that you're not feeling gratitude. They mean that you're not expressing it. Now, they might be accusing you, they might really say some mean things, right? Like, you are an ungrateful jerk. Maybe they're saying you don't have it on the inside, but the reason they're saying that is because you're not expressing it on the outside. They're really accusing you of not expressing something. And that's the disconnect, because you have it on the inside. You just haven't expressed it on the outside. And that can be really damaging to your relationships. Now, it gets worse. I also think while gratitude, unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude, unexpressed gratitude is also a form of rejection. It's a form of rejection. And you kind of already know this. You'll see it in little areas. Like, have you ever held open the door for somebody and they not say thank you? Screw you, man, right? come back through. I'm going to close the door. You can open it yourself, right? Or if you ever let somebody over on the highway, you let them over and they don't even give you a courtesy wave, nothing. You just kind of want to be like, never mind. You want to ram them, right? Like, they take it back. Because you feel a little bit, right? That's a little tiny micro rejection in your life? Or have you ever like made food for somebody and they didn't even say it was good? They didn't even lie, right? They just sit there and you feel you feel some kind of way about that, right? You feel rejected. It's micro rejection. When you don't express your gratitude, is a micro rejection in someone's heart. And enough of those over time will cause a real problem in a relationship. This hits twice. If you don't express your gratitude, you're communicating ingratitude and you are communicating a little rejection. You're punching them in the gut twice with that. Now, here's the thing. You already kind of know this. It sounds so mind-blowing, but you already know this. You already have the instincts for this. And I'll tell you here, let me play the role of prophet in your life for a minute. If you have small kids, I'm going to prophesy. I'm going to look into your future. Christmas is in 10 days. If you have small kids, 10 days. And I don't know how many Christmases you have. We have a couple because we're going to go to grandma's house. We got a bunch of, my kids will be opening presents in multiple venues, okay? So here's what's going to happen for you. Your kid's going to get a present. They're going to tear into that thing. They're going to open it up. They're going to look at it. Hopefully they smile. That's good, right, if they do that. Then if your kids are like my kids, they're going to immediately ask you to open it, right? Like they don't just want to unwrap it. They want to open it. And you're going to be, if you're like me, you're going to be like, we're not playing with it right now. We're just opening. And it'll be a fight. They'll cry a little bit. And you'll finally get them settled down. They'll have that box. There'll be that pregnant pause because you're hoping for something. And if it doesn't happen, you're going to say 2 words. It's actually 4, but you're going to squish it into 2, okay? You're going to say as a parent, if they're sitting there with an unwrapped present on their lap, the person who just gave it to them is looking at them, you're waiting, and you're like, what do you say? What do you say, right? It's 2 words. What do you say? 2 words, right? What do you say? What do you say? What do you say? You're just, and then there's another pregnant pause, but this one's for you. You're hoping they know, right? Please say, thank you. Like, hopefully they smile. Hopefully they go and give them a hug, all that stuff. But here's why, this is what's so cool, because as a parent, you have an instinct. You know that if they don't say it, if they don't express it, they look like ungrateful, spoiled brats, right? They might be, but you just want them to at least fake it for that moment because you want them to say the thing. You know in that moment that expressing the gratitude is vital. It fixes everything. It's the way it's supposed to be. You understand that. So see, you already know the principle that unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. Even if they had it in their hearts, they have to say it or it's gonna do the wrong thing in the room. You already know it. You also know that it's a little form of rejection that's gonna actually hurt the person because they didn't say it. So you already have this. Unexpressed gratitude communicates ingratitude. And it's a form of rejection. And it's such a big deal. It's such a big deal because it can absolutely destroy a relationship. This can destroy a relationship. And it's kind of like, it's not an all-at-once thing, but it's kind of like water over rock. This can erode a relationship. Over time, enough unexpressed gratitudes go by. And here's what happens. Some of you have relationships like this right now and you don't even know what's wrong. You can't even figure it out. You have no idea what's wrong with your relationship. But I can tell you, you have 2 people who don't properly express their gratitude to each other. And what happens is both feel underappreciated, which doesn't make any sense. Both feel rejection, mild rejection from the other person, like the other person doesn't appreciate them, the other person doesn't love them very much. For who they are and what they do, they just feel like they're less than. And little thing about your heart is hardwired to be drawn towards acceptance. We just kind of are, right? You're always kind of drawn towards things where you're accepted. So if you're in a relationship where somebody's constantly giving you micro rejections without gratitude, what happens is your hearts are being pushed apart. Slowly but surely, your hearts are pushing away from each other because of these little tiny rejections that you're giving each other by not expressing your gratitude towards each other. And you're looking back going, I don't even know what happened. Well, it wasn't one thing, it was a million little things. A complete lack of expression of how grateful you are for each other. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. I think the opposite is true as well. I think gratitude, expressing gratitude, can be like water in the desert of a relationship. I think you can really bring a relationship back to life by expressing gratitude. I really do think you can. Because one of the other things that's just true about gratitude when you express it is gratitude generates generosity in other people. And I don't mean like generosity like money, but relationships are all about giving, right? It's about giving. So gratitude generates generosity in others. And again, stupid example, but if you like let somebody over in their car and they're like got their fist out the window, like pumping their fists excited, you're like, let's let more people over, right? Like you get excited because that, it does something in your heart. And if you've ever been in one of those lines where it's like the pay it forward line, like one person paid for your drink and then you pay for the next person's drink. Like gratitude inspires generosity. You can kind of see this, I feel grateful for that, so now I want to give to another. Like you see the way this works with people. And I think it can work in your relationship. If you get better at expressing gratitude, it'll open up those lines, those conduits of relationship, and it'll draw you back to the person if you start expressing your gratitude to each other. It can really work. So, what can we do? Well, I hope it's obvious you need to express your gratitude. You can't just stop at feeling. You have to express. But unfortunately for you, you do not have your mom following you around saying, what do you say? What do you say? If your mom's following you around, you have different problems. But you need to be intentional about expressing your gratitude to people in your life. You need to. Even if it's forced at first, you need to. It's that important. You have to get good at regularly expressing your gratitude to the people in your life. So I want to give you 3, and by the way, before I even do this, I just want to say, and this is a bit of a stereotype, so forgive me. Hey, guys, men, we're a little worse at this. Typically, maybe you're not, maybe you're awesome at it, that's great, good for you, shut up. The rest of us, this is something, when I say the word express, you're like, what now? Doesn't she already know? Yeah. No, she doesn't, believe it or not. Because you're communicating the opposite of what you feel constantly. So you're going to have to push through here. I'm going to say you need to push through here, and I'm even going to help you. I'm going to give you the beginning of 3 sentences. The beginning of 3 sentences, you just have to finish the sentence. You're welcome. You should have expressed gratitude, that's fine. So here's the first one. You need to add these 3 sentences to your life. The first one starts with, thank you for. Thank you for. Now, thank you, period, is a full sentence. You could just say thank you, but I think you need to add the for, ... and you need to tell people why you're thankful for them. And this works in any relationship. Any relationship that you have, thank you for. It means so much more when you're specific about what you're thankful for. So you can use this one. This was like the general use. This is the easiest one. This is the one that you can say for anything. This is, thank you for taking out the garbage. Thank you for wiping your toothpaste spit off of the mirror. Like anything you can use this one for. That's the first one, base level. Second one, little deeper. I love you because. And again, I love you is a full sentence. Good, important one. But you need to stop, don't put the period, put a because, ... You need to tell them why. And again, I know, guys, we're bad at this. I'm bad at this. The people in our lives need to hear that they're loved, and they need to hear why. They need to hear why. Hearing I love you over and over and again kind of loses its luster, doesn't it? Can we just be honest? If you say I love you to your spouse 1,000,000 times, does it mean more that you said it 1,000,001? I think they need to hear why. We need to add the because the detail matters. So express this and find it. Hunt for things. Hunt for things. And again, they don't all have to be big. It doesn't have to be some big, monstrous, you don't have to turn it into a Hallmark movie speech every time. But like, you can definitely find little things. I love you because of that. I love you because of that. Those little things. All right, and the last sentence you need to add regularly to your vocabulary is, I'm proud of you because. I'm proud of you because. This one, really important for kids and really important for men. So a little about guys, again, sorry, so ladies, this is important if you don't know this. And it might not be true of all guys, but I just want you to know this. If guys had to choose between I love you because and I'm proud of you because, we will pick I'm proud of you because every time. it means more to us. For some reason, there's something inside, the way God wired us, I don't know. And again, might not be true of you. You need to ask your man if that's true. But for guys, most of the time, I'm proud of you because seems to move the needle in here more. And it's certainly true for your kids. And I got to tell you guys, I'd be transparent. God always does this thing where he teaches me the lesson before I preach it. And I legit was in a knockdown, drag-out fight with one of my teenagers this week. And it was annoying because he's really good at arguing because he's inherited it. And we're going back and forth, and a lot of what he's saying is wrong because he's a teenager and they're just wrong a lot. But at one point I'm listening really well and I'm like, oh my gosh. He doesn't know I'm proud of him. And I didn't realize it because my teenagers are awesome. They're awesome. Like I wouldn't trade them for anything. I love, the problems I have with them are so small. But I have this thing, and I think it's a compliment, that I think God has really big plans for them. So if they get a B, I'm like, oh yeah, B's fine, but God's got more for you. You know, you're better than that. Like God can do so much more through you. And it's, for me, that's a compliment. But for a teenage boy, it's crushing. He didn't know. So you never tell me. And I was like, well, you didn't know it? No, he didn't. So I have to express it. I have to express it so much better. And again, I have the best of intentions, but I don't realize how important this is. That because I'm not expressing it, I'm actually telling him the opposite. So we have to express it. We have to express it. This can change your relationships. Thank you for, I love you because, I'm proud of you because. Change your relationships. Now I'm going to end on this. That's other people, and you need to get really good at those. But what about God? What about when it comes to gratitude towards God? Because I think you could make the argument, and I would too if I were you, because this is very perfectly logical. The reason you have to express gratitude for other people is because they can't see inside of you, right? If your wife could just see the feelings that you have, you wouldn't even have to say anything. She'd just know, right? Well, God can. So if God can see my gratitude, do I have to express it? Well, I think the entire reason this story is in the Bible is because you do. That Jesus, standing there and with one guy kneeling in front of him, didn't say, oh, I see their gratitude, it's cool. And he absolutely could. He can see their hearts. He knows exactly what they're feeling. He knows all that. And he still said, this isn't right. There should still be an expression here. And I think that tells us something. This is a big part of the way God created us as humans, that our expression of gratitude to him is built in part of the way he wants us to work with him. That our relationship with God, a huge piece, if this thing can fit together, it's gratitude to the almighty God of the universe who created you, loves you, and died for you. You expressing gratitude is like a part of the way he wants you to live from now on. And for the past 2,000 years since Jesus came to earth, died on the cross, in our place for our sins, Christians have been trying to figure out better ways to express it. Because I don't know about you, when you really feel gratitude for someone, you try to find different ways to express it, right? So the base level gratitude towards God is praying thanks to him, is telling him the things you're grateful for in prayer. One of my little experiments these past 2 weeks in this little series has been that I've been trying to only pray gratitude to God. I've tried not to ask him for anything. Now I can't keep doing that because I actually think you're supposed to ask God for stuff. That's not like some holy thing. But just for this season, I just wanted to increase that. I just really wanted to lean into gratitude for God. And it's changed a bunch of stuff. It's been really cool to take a break from asking for things and just finding things to thank him for. And it feels right. It's the right posture to God. But I want to say that's base level. That's like 101. Of course you need to pray and thank God. So one of the other ways is actually what we do here. When we sing, that's a part of it. Like Christians for centuries have been singing to God because they're trying to express their gratitude and their worship to him. So I know if you're newer to this whole Christian thing, you're like, what are you people singing these songs? What is this, Christian karaoke? Like, what are you guys even doing here, right? Sometimes it feels weird. And maybe if you're really new, you're looking at people, somebody has their hand raised and they got their eyes closed and they look like they're a little in pain when they're like, you're like, you wonder what's going on? Well, what's going on is they're expressing their gratitude to God. They're remembering all the stuff that God has done for them, all the good that God has done for them, and they're expressing that gratitude. So singing to God is a part of that. So open up your mouth and let some sound come out. I actually think that's important. So maybe you need to think about that a little bit. Another one is giving money back to God. That's a huge thing that for centuries Christians have been saying, I don't know how to express how thankful I am for you. So they give things to God. That's a way we do it with humans. That's a way it works with God. But really, the best way to express your gratitude to Jesus for what he's done for you is to give him your entire life, actually. Jesus isn't an add-on. He's not a I have my life and then Jesus is over here. No, the best way to express your gratitude is to give him your whole life, make him central. And maybe what that looks like for you is maybe you've got parts of your life that you still kind of got your hands wrapped around, that thing that you don't want to give him. Maybe one of the best ways you could express gratitude for what God has done in your life is to open up your hand and say, all right, you're going to have that, Give him your whole life. Give him your whole life. So we're taking communion today. So hopefully you got a little cup on the way in. If you didn't, we got some people who can come around and give you one. And just raise your hand. We'll get you one if you got missed. So here's what communion is. If you're unfamiliar, communion, the night Jesus was betrayed and arrested, he took bread and he broke it and he said, this is my body, which is for you. And he took wine and he drank it and he said, this is my blood, which is spilled for you. Communion. And then he said, do this in remembrance of me. So we as Christians, we take this little physical thing and it's an act of gratitude and remembrance for what he's done for us. So if you're a Christian, this is one of the things we do, a physical representation of a spiritual thing. So here's how we're going to do it today. You have the little thing. If you don't know that if you're struggling with the wrapper, the cracker does come out of the wrapper and then the juice comes next. The worship team's going to come back up. They're going to sing a song. I just want you to take a moment, have a moment with God. I want you to pray. I want the theme of your prayer to be gratitude. That's I gave you the theme. You got to fill in the rest. Part of what you should be grateful for is what Jesus did for you on the cross. That's the whole point. Build off that. Have a moment with God. Maybe even ask him, how can I get better at this, Lord? How can I get better at this? And take that moment. Thank Jesus that he closed that gap, just like that leper, that you now can approach God. And that is the best thing in the world. And you can eat the cracker, drink the juice in your own time. And then when you're done, you should sing. Let it come out of your mouth and be here in this moment. Pray with me. Lord, thank you. You are so, so good. We can't even scratch the surface of expressing how much we should. Lord, I pray for the person right now who has a hard time expressing. I pray for the husband right now who has a hard time expressing. Lord, I pray that you would open his mouth and give him words. Help him to connect the feeling that he has on the inside with the words he's saying on the outside. Lord, I pray that you would give him those words. That he'd push through whatever awkward weirdness it is and be able to express that. I pray for the person who maybe they have a hard time expressing the good in a relationship and they only focus on maybe the little tiny negative that's there, Lord. Pray that they would be able to focus on the good and be able to point out the good and express it. I pray for the person who feels like they've got a whole lot of gratitude in their heart, but they've been missing expressing it and they don't realize the damage they've done in their relationships. Lord, I pray that you would open their eyes and help them express it in all the different ways that they need to. And Lord, I pray for this whole church that our relationship with you would be transformed, that we would be better at expressing our gratitude to you. That yes, you know what's in our hearts, Lord, but we need to act it out. We need to express it back to you in our prayer, through song, through giving our entire lives to you, Lord. I pray that this church would be full of people who express their gratitude to each other and to you. And it would bring life with it. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for a relationship with you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.